Look at surfaces, and there's a familiar everyday experience that everybody has gone through that will illustrate beautifully why this geometry between light source, object, and viewer is crucial to figuring something out. You have company coming, and you haven't seen them in many, many years. You want to impress the hell out of them. And you have this wonderful house and this big veranda, and it's got all kinds of windows, and you're going to have a whole lunch outside on the veranda, and it overlooks the setting sun and the lake and the trees and all this. And as the company is driving up, you can see the sun beginning to come down past the awning, and you're looking out through the glass, and you realize you can't see anything because you forgot to wash the windows. This is an example of forward scattering. The sound of footsteps, rapidly heard in the background, is the sound of people scattering because they don't want to face the company coming up the walk to see the cruddy windows. The point is that the geometry, depending upon whether you're looking toward the light source or the light source is behind you, reflecting off the surface, will change dramatically your ability to see objects depending upon their size, their composition, their geometric structure, and several other parameters. So the scattering geometry is really crucial in any detailed analysis of these objects. This now is 4854. This is an Apollo photograph taken by an astronaut in the command module looking out the window with a handheld Hasselblad camera with an 80mm lens. There is a piece of 70mm film, very high resolution Ektar-based Kodachrome aerial reconnaissance film in the camera. This is the kind of film that was in the U-2s that Kennedy used to make the decision on the Cuban Missile Crisis, except in this case you're orbiting 70 miles above the moon, twice the altitude of a lunar orbiter, and you're moving in this direction toward this terrain, actually at about an angle like about that, and in the forward window out on the horizon, on the terminator, because this is now day and this is night. The moon is rotating toward you, so this is the dawn line. The light is creeping this way at about 20 miles per hour. You could walk and keep up with sunrise or sunset on the moon if you were in a spacesuit. This little guy right there is the cube on the tower. Now you'll notice that there are other weird things in this picture. In fact, there's a whole kind of fuzz along the horizon, and this area here is really fuzzy, and the fuzz is and is not connected with bright little islands. It appears to have a mind and life of its own. Now, first of all, what in the world is causing that? Obviously, we've overexposed this photograph a lot. We pushed the photo to the limit to find out what's down in the faint shadows. And what we're finding is that there is crud in the shadows that should not exist. Remember, there is no air, no water, no clouds, no hazes, nothing on the moon except a hard vacuum. So what is scattering this light in backscatter back toward the spacecraft orbiting toward it 70 miles above? As we get closer, this is now 4855, there's our little cube. Notice that these other guys have disappeared, and there's new guys that have appeared, all right? And there also appears to be a very faint geometric structure of regular horizontal and vertical lines. And keep in mind, this is not an electronic image originally. It is a handheld photograph. It is not a lunar orbiter picture. It is an Apollo image taken by an astronaut. And yet there appear to be some kind of regular geometry in this region where our plot, our geometric plot, says these Apollo photographs had to overlap the region of the tower and the cube. All right? Now here's 4856. Now here is our little guy again. Notice there are some straight spiky things. There is a strange arrangement of little... Now, you might say, okay, that's lint. These are lousy photographs. They're just bad photographs, all right? But lint does not possess a geometric pattern. What you want to look at here in the next montage is this. What we've done now is we've arrayed these three pictures. This is 48, 54, 55, 56. Notice this bright spot here, and here you can see that it's still there, and here it has gone away, all right? There is our little guy, the cube. You're getting closer. You're seeing a lot now of this regular geometry. As you're getting closer, you're seeing that there is a structure to this, a 3D structure. What we're seeing is a gridwork of light reflecting material above the moon. And remember, this is a completely different lighting geometry, time of day, technology, mission, and viewing angle from the similar grid-like structure we saw on the lunar orbiter photograph of the tower and the glass cube on top of it, taken from this direction, looking at about a 45-degree angle. So if this is the cube, and it's the one we think it is, then when we magnify it, we ought to be able to see, now what we've done is a false color here, and you can see that there is this spiky stuff which sticks up above the moon's surface, above the edge of the terminator, the sunrise line. And keep in mind the standard lunar model. Incessant meteor bombardment. Every shard, every long stringy thing should be beaten absolutely flat if there was anything there to begin with. So how come we have a surface that looks like prairie grass as opposed to the rounded sculptured hills that is NASA's moon? This is the shot I call the Golden Arches, for obvious reasons. This is a fragment of something so big, so awesome, so stunning, that one time was so magnificent. And you can see that it's been beaten to hell. It's moth-eaten, there are holes, and above it, there is the cube. And this is obviously the base of the tower that we couldn't see from the other angle because the tower was down in front of the brightly overexposed surface that we had to overexpose to get the cube in the first place against the airless lunar sky. And as we go in, you can now see that this fuzz has detailed structure. Look at the geometry, look at the layering, look at the multiple levels. This is not lint, this is not scratches, this is a coherence of a geometry, a wondrous geometry which has been beaten to death by an incessant meteoric rain. How old must this be to be in this condition? And how can it be in any condition at all? Because obviously it can't exist. You're not seeing what your eyes are seeing. This is impossible in NASA's version of the moon. This is not real. This cannot be. And yet, if you look at it, you can see that there are planes of glass now. The edge that you saw on the other photograph is this edge rotated 45 degrees. We didn't have time, but by the time Dr. Mark Carlotta, who was one of our imaging specialists, and several others get finished compositing these views together with the state-of-the-art 3D computer graphics technology, which is available almost now on any desktop, can you imagine what it will be like to fly 360 degrees around a glass tower rising 7 miles above the moon? The space program begins anew tonight. If this can be confirmed, if people can, through the internet, find the photographs in their own archives, in the photos that were freely given out by NASA 30 years ago, when the system was founded on the charter and was honest, the space program can begin anew. And we can stop marking time and waiting in the shallows while some timid bureaucrats wrestle with the dilemma of how to really tell us what they really found upon the moon.